Hey, I'm Zachary Bird and I am a vegan recipe developer based here in Melbourne, Australia. I had a couple of friends come over for dinner the other night and I had to cook up a big feast that catered to a variety of dietary requirements. So everything I cook is vegan, but I also had to make this feast gluten-free friendly, onion-free, garlic-free, and ideally without beans or nightshades where possible, which is quite a tricky feat, but I like to cook my meals so that everyone who comes together can share in the same food. So this is a challenge that I thought I would accept. So as a vegan chef, I thought it might be interesting to talk you through what I like to cook for my friends when I've got all of these competing dietary requirements. So what's on the menu? I decided to make an entire Mexican feast. So we started with elote, and there's lots of really delicious ways to dress that.
But before we get cracking, you've got to grill your corn. Grill your corn for about 20 minutes. I like to add splashes of water here and there to keep it all super juicy. I'm dressing mine with some Chipotle Mayo, and that starts off with 4 tablespoons of soy milk. This is hing. It's a great substitute for garlic when you can't use garlic. I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of that, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of mustard. 3/4 teaspoon of vinegar goes in, and we're going to blend that till it gets super frothy. This is our base. Normally I'd like to use an immersion blender, but I forgot it. So I'm going to be adding my oil, 3/4 cup of canola oil in total, in small increments just to make sure that I don't break this emulsion. As you can see, I just add a little splash and then let it all blend up and it gets super thick. You should end up with something like this. That banging mayo recipe comes from my cookbook, but we're going to pimp it out today and make it Chipotle Mayo. We need Chipotles in adobo sauce. I screwed up and got ones with onion in it. If you're cooking for someone that can't have onion, avoid that. We've got 3 tablespoons of the Chipotles in adobo going in, and we're going to squeeze some fresh lime, and this is going to make a really star flavor for our elote. Blend it all up, and here's what you get. Chipotle mayonnaise, fresh and more delicious than you'll get anywhere else.
If you are a vegan, which I hope you are, have a look out for nutritional yeast. It's also called savory yeast flakes. It's called nutritional yeast. Sometimes it's called nooch, and I call it vegan crack. So get some of this. If you're in a pinch, just pop some Nutalex and some of that on top, and you've got a really delicious corn to start off.
But for tonight, we're going to be serving up the corn and letting people smear on that delicious Chipotle mayo and sprinkling on the nutritional yeast to taste. You can also find Mexican Tajin spice, which is super delicious, or anything like peri peri on top of your mayonnaise to make it extra yum.
Next on the menu are tacos. These are really easy. I'm cooking gluten-free tonight, so I want to make sure I get real corn tortillas without wheat in them.
At this point in the evening, my friends rocked up, so I put them straight to work making things for the tacos. That includes chopping tomatoes, lettuce, and making some guac and refried beans.
And I'm making some homemade salsa without onion or garlic, which is really a baked tomato sauce with a bit of jalapeno, but it'll add that spicy tomato-ness to make everything taste good. The meat that I'm using is a brand new one called Fableco. Now, this is just entering Woolworths if you're in Australia, so you can pick it up. It's slow braised meat made from shiitake mushrooms. I was lucky enough to go on a mushroom foraging tour with this team the other day.
I learned lots of wicked things about foraging for mushrooms, but even cooler things about cooking mushrooms from the mycologist at Fableco. The number one tip that I picked up was to not actually start your mushrooms in oil and always try and use a flavoured broth or at least hot water to get everything sweating before you add your oil and your fragrance. That way you're going to get much better flavour out of your mushrooms. I chose to use a barbecue smoked salt rub for the flavour in these ones just because I found one without onion and garlic that was suitable for guests. Once all those elements are prepared, it's as easy as just setting them up on the table with things like limes, and people can build their own tacos based on which elements of the dishes they can eat.
Now for the star attraction, the quesadilla. Now this is born from my childhood favorite dish, which I call Mexican bread because my dad had no idea about actual Mexican cuisine, but it was really just every herb under the sun and cheese fried between flatbread, and it was incredible. So I've dressed this up as delicious quesadillas.
These are the jazzed up quesadillas you'll find in my cookbook, but tonight I'm simplifying it because I'm going to frost a whole lot and some crazy stuff later. We're going to start off by washing all of our herbs before we prepare a big bowl to pour a whole bag of dairy-free cheese into. Many people who are avoiding onion can actually have the green parts of a green onion, but not the white parts. So if you've got guests who are avoiding onion, check with them and you might be able to use it. I'm putting in 4 of the green parts of green onion into my cheese mix, finely chopped. Next, we're going to chop up the mint, the basil, and the coriander. I put my friends to work again, doing 2 bunches of basil, 1.5 of coriander, and half a bunch of mint, finely chopped and added to the mix. I've also chopped half of a red capsicum really finely and thrown that into. This is when it starts smelling insanely good. Like, this is my favorite smell in the world.
Looks like Christmas. Oh
Smells
my
like,
gosh.
right? Is that not the
Wow.
best?
Now this might be cheating, but I call it a hack. I cook my quesadillas in a sandwich press because I can't be arsed waiting for both sides to fry. Just pop a handful of the mixture between 2 corn tortillas and pop the sandwich press down until both sides have turned golden brown. This way you don't really need to use too much oil, although when we're cooking gluten-free, it's important to note that it won't always brown and crisp up in the same way. If your cheese starts to melt out of the quesadilla, then lucky you finally found a vegan cheese that melts properly. Just squeeze it back in.
We're going to repeat that process until we have as many quesadillas as we need to make a pretty hefty cake. I went down to my local supermarket and I found some vegan cream cheese just because I'm not in love with most vegan sour creams I find. I find they're really sweet and they don't give the sourness that I'm really looking for.
We decided to get bold and use it exactly like we would buttercream. So that's just frothing it up so it's nice and spreadable. And then we did exactly that. And we spread vegan cream cheese all over this cake to give the effect of an actual cake. It might look like a messy process, but it was a lot of fun and it looks like the real deal in my opinion. Make sure that your quesadilla stack is cooled down enough first so that your cream cheese doesn't melt off the edge. All we need now is a gorgeous garnish. My friends and I had cracked open a bottle of wine at this point, so we decided to make an avocado rose. Our first one was a complete failure, so I looked up a YouTube video and Brett Cobley, or EpiVegan, has a brilliant tutorial that we decided to follow. The tips we've picked up is to make your slices as thin as possible, and sometimes it's just about finding that perfect avocado. My good friend Megan did some perfect slicing, and then our second attempt at spreading it into a rose was much better.
What she looks like on Tinder on the first day. Can I say something crazy? Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
What if that went on top of that? Once the second bottle of vegan-friendly wine had been cracked out, we were getting groundbreaking. We decided to stack our roses to make the most impressive avocado rose of all time, and I think we got pretty close. But wait, there's more. We thought that our avocado rose looked like it had the structural integrity to hold a third layer, and boom, it did. I think this is a bloody impressive topping to our already gorgeous quesadilla. All that was left was to precariously balance it on our beautiful cake, and voila. We put some peri-peri spice around the edges and rubbed it in to give it a frosted cake effect, and cut that bad boy open to serve to all of our friends. This feast was great because it was really easy to do a lot of prep work beforehand and have a variety of different foods on the table, so everyone could build a meal that was perfect for their own diet. And in the middle was a quesadilla everyone could enjoy.
I had a great time at dinner, and I hope that this gives you some tips if you've got a crowd of friends coming over with lots of different dietary requirements. Mexican and these particular dishes are some of my favorite ways to put them together. So if you want the grand version of everything I've talked about today, look for Vegan Junk Food by Zachary Bird, that's me, in stores or on my website, and it'll be everywhere come September. And it is a stunning trove of delicious deep fried and ice creamified recipes, and it's all 100% plant-based. So if you haven't heard of me and you haven't gotten a copy yet, do that.